Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink, I have in sample form, but I actually got from my mysterious benefactor. So, admittedly, I don't know the full details of it. It's a Noodler's ink, Upper Ganges Blue. Now, because I don't have the bottle, or didn't look into buying it for myself, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure if it's exclusive to Goulet Pens, or maybe that's just luxury blue, I don't know. I do know that it's an eternal ink, so it's supposed to have very intense permanent properties, and it's blue. As you might be able to tell from the vial, there's actually only about 1 milliliter left in this vial, but it really coats the bottle, so yeah. All the tests were done in these two Hero 616s. First one is unaltered. It's quite fine. I didn't make it wetter, and since fine nibs tend to be a bit drier, it's extremely moderate. The other one was one that I did alter. Made it a bit broader and a bit wetter because that's how I tend to like my pens, and I thought, alright, this will give a good, variation. See the differences? So let's check out the chromatography. This is how you're supposed to do chromatography. You put the ink down there and instantly dunk it in water. What's kind of curious is you might be able to see there's pink in here. There's like pink underneath the blue. It did leave a ring, and some of it got pushed up, but it's almost like you can see that it was fighting it. So that was kind of interesting. And then I let it dry, which is not how you're supposed to do this. But as you can see, pretty much all of it stayed. There's just this very light sky blue that got pushed up, and very eagerly pushed up. You see all this blank space? Isn't that weird? But anyways, yeah. It's a Noodler's ink. It's an eternal ink, and like many Noodler's eternal inks, it has this very woolly texture to it. So here it is, Upper Ganges. I thought I'd compare it to a few other permanent or eternal Noodler's inks. So here's Noodler's for Dromgool's Texas Blue Bonnet, which, by the way, when it's fresh, is like identical to Texas Noodler's Dromgool's Texas Blue Steel. But once it's been in the pen for like 2 days, it turns much lighter blue. So when I did a smear out of the bottle, that's why it looks darker than it usually does when you're writing with it. Moving on. This is a Goulet exclusive. Is it? No, this is not. But anyways, it's another eternal ink. It's Noodler's 54th Massachusetts. I think we're all familiar with that. It's a lovely blue-black. Also, you can see all these have that sort of woolliness to it. This is a Goulet exclusive. This is Noodler's Liberty's Elysium. This is not an eternal ink, but yeah, it's a blue. And then here's another one. This is Noodler's Blue Upon the Plains of Abraham for Wonder Pens in Canada. Again, sort of has that woolliness, but a much darker blue. Yeah, so let's get started. Top-down intensity, Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. Full disclosure, I had it in the fine nib and was using it, and I was like, oh, this is a nice blue ink, and it's dark. And so when I decided to test it, I had to refill it. Actually, no, it was both, yeah, because I filled it intending to do a test, and then I ended up nearly using them out. And so I refilled them before the test, and for some reason, the behavior got quite bad. When it was fresh, right before I did the test, it was behaving quite well. So something weird was going on. Now, the fine took 5.5 seconds to dry. The broad took 7. As you can see, there's a tiny bit of shading, but not much. There's very great deal of that woolly texture. I don't know if you'll be able to catch this on camera, but there's actually some feathers to this. Or maybe it's extreme woolliness. I don't know how you would define it, but on Clairefontaine, this is dense paper. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, there's some very near bleed. Granted, it was with the broad wet nib. Do you see that? And only in some places, but still, that's something to look out for. But yeah, look at the water test. It actually looks like I didn't do a water test. The only way you can tell is how warped the paper got. So, extreme water resistance. I mean, you cannot tell the difference. So there's that. That's fantastic. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where the fine took 7 seconds and the broad took 8. So it actually took longer. I can't explain that, but here you definitely get a lot of that woolliness still. It's a very lovely shade of blue, but yeah, again, very near bleed in spots. Granted, it is mostly with the broad, but still, this is Rhodia, this very dense paper. Yeah, here there's not so much the feathering, so much as just sort of that really intense woolly texture, so that's nice. But, and again, the water test, fantastic. You can't tell the difference. There's really no change. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I did the 1/3 bleach solution because it's an eternal ink, and you can see it gets a bit lighter, but it's still there. That's what these 2 dots right here are. So next is Tomoe River Paper, where finally it loses that woolliness and actually it takes on, I don't know if the camera will be able to pick this up, it gets shiny. So it looks glossy, but it also looks shiny. And you get some shading, as you can see, like in the writing, but the dry times get very, very long. So it went from, you know, like 5 or 6 seconds or whatever to 18 in the fine and 29 seconds in the broad. To the point where I'd written this, and then I did all this, and then I did all this, and then it's smeared. So, yeah, I mean, it looks beautiful on here. It's a lovely shade of blue. It's shiny. You don't get bleed or feather or spread. You do get some significant echo, but this is very thin paper. But still, if you're sensitive to that, something to be aware of. And Tomoe River loves to let ink slide away when you add water, but here, again, I mean, you can't even tell the difference. I mean, it looks like I didn't do a water test. And here, even still, that 1/3 bleach solution got a bit lighter, but it's still very, very there. Now, next is awful, awful, awful 20-pound copier paper, where I only use the fine nib except to write the name. And it dries pretty much instantly, but there's a lot of spread. I'm going to try and compare this line with. See how it got broader on here? So it's spread. There is some bleed, a good bit of bleed, even though this is a very fine, very moderate nib. Yeah, there's no shading. There's plenty of feathering. And it's extremely woolly all over, so that's not great. But again, water test. Didn't blink. Like nothing happened. And the 1/3 bleach solution, again, got slightly lighter, but I think that's, honestly, I think what that is that it's starting to break down the paper. So, Next is Mead Notebook Paper, where I only use the fine nib. Dries pretty much instantly. There's no real bleed through, but since this paper is so thin, you get some very extreme show through. You see that? It doesn't make it to the other side, but it very nearly does. But yeah, yeah, there's feathering. There is that. You get plenty of that. And there is some spread. It's broader than it is on the nice papers. But yeah, again, water test didn't blink. And this paper hates water. It tends to just make things explode into cactuses. But here, not a blink. And the bleach test, you can barely even tell it's there. So, lastly is Moleskine Notebook Paper, where I only use the fine except to write the name. But even that didn't do it any favors. Look at all this feathering. Extreme woolliness. And it took 3 seconds to dry, whereas on most absorbent papers it dried almost instantly. Even though this is a very fine nib and it's very moderate, we get bleed through all over. The light's sort of obscuring it, but it came all the way through in many, many, many tiny spots. Not encouraging. And weirdly, the water test actually had some kind of effect here. I mean, you can tell where the water test was. It actually kind of like started to act funny. And the bleach test actually broke apart the paper and it started to, can you hear that? Yeah, it started to come up. So, meh. But yeah, there you go. There's Noodler's Upper Ganges Blue. It's in Eternal ink, I'm fairly sure. It has that woolly texture that a lot of the Eternal inks do. Except on Tomoe River where it gets nice and glossy, but Yeah, it's a nice light blue, so if you're looking for a permanent light blue, this one's very good. Careful with it, though, even on the nice papers. So, for your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.